Hello everyone and welcome to today's webinar. We're going to get started in about 2 minutes. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to today's Link Senior webinar. Just a few housekeeping items before we begin today. We are providing one free NCCAP CEU credit to participants who are joining us live today. To be eligible for the CEU credit, you'll need to remain on the webinar for the full hour, and the Zoom meeting room will track how long you remain in the room and will send that as a digital report to me. We are not able to provide CEUs to people who join only by phone. At the end of the webinar, I will provide the required post-webinar CEU survey evaluation link in the webinar room chat box, and I'll also be sending that as a constant contact email message. Please check your email spam folder. You must fill out that survey no later than midnight this Friday, April 3rd to be eligible for the CEU credit. If you're not looking for CEU credit today, we still want your feedback, so please go ahead and fill out that survey as well. Our CEU NCCAP certificates will be issued on Monday next week on April 6th. And again, please be sure to check your spam folder in case it lands there. I'm now going to hand it off to Charles de Vilmorin, CEO and co-founder of Link Senior. Charles, go ahead.
Thank you very much, Megan. Hi, everyone. I'm not going to ask you how you were because that question is definitely interesting these days, but I do wish that you're doing well and as well as possible. Again, thanks for joining. My name, as Megan mentioned, is Charles de Vilmorin, and I'm the CEO and co-founder of Link Senior. As you might have seen, these are special editions that we're doing on top of our existing webinar series to help you true and special people that are working frontline in these retirement communities, engaging the older adult. And I think the one thing I wanted to start off with is to thank you for what you're doing every day, week, month, and it's fantastic to have you take care of our older adults for our society right now. And I know they're a very challenging time. And hopefully we can help as much as possible. So obviously this is where we have these two great speakers today, where we're going to try to see how we can provide you with tips and best practices to help you in your work. So again, the context is COVID-19 resident engagement, and based on the amazing number of requests we had last time, we decided to focus on the guidelines, the changes of what is the mean for resident engagement staff, so activity directors, life enrichment, and rec therapists, and focusing on the context of people living with cognitive change and diagnoses such as dementia, like Alzheimer's. So with us, we have Don Worsley and Vicki the Klerk-Rubin. Just to give you a little bit of context, we started these webinars as a way for us to help the staff, when it comes to engaging the older adults. We heard from a lot of people that it was challenging sometimes to get quality education, And sometimes some of the people we talked to couldn't leave their community. So we thought about doing these webinars, and as you see from these numbers and the incredible roster of people that we've been pretty successful and got a lot of good feedback. And that is an invitation to you. If you want to give us advice on who we should have us present on this series, please feel free to reach out to us. There's a little bit of background on what it is that we do as a company. This company that I started, again, is called Link Senior, and what we provide is a platform to help you, the staff, engage the residents, especially the ones that are losing or have lost self-recreation ability. And so we've been fortunate, we've been growing very well. We have a presence in 43 states and Canada. And our research was actually published late last year, where we are actually able to show and measure the impact of resident engagement of activities. You can find much more details, obviously, on our website. And I wanted to take a few moments to introduce you in more details the speakers that we have today. So the first person that we have, a lot of you might know her, as she is the president of NCCAP. I also want to mention, because I think it's pretty cool, that Dawn actually is in charge of programming. So she does your work, basically. She's in charge of programming for a nursing home in Maryland that is part of a chain called Future Care. And her responsibility also includes supporting the other 15 locations. So she has this building level, but also corporate level understanding of this work. And she has this incredible perspective where, in combination with her work at NCCAP, she'll be able to offer insights on how things are changing today and how we can engage our residents through this crisis. After that, we have Vicki, and Vicki is the executive director of the Validation Training Institute, which promotes the validation method, which was founded by Naomi Feil. And Vicki comes to us from Europe, from the Netherlands today. I've talked a little bit about myself. One of the things that I'm the most proud of is that we started the Old People Are Cool campaign, and I encourage you to visit our website, oldpeopleare.cool. And the other thing that I'm very proud of is when I started Link Senior, one of the first things I did was to go through MEPAP 1, which is a course offered by Validation to understand what activity directors do. So enough with me, and let's get with the program. So essentially, as you probably saw, our agenda changed slightly from what you received in your email. Let me go through it. What we're going to do is have Dawn kind of update us on the guidelines. As you probably understand and live as much or more than I do, the situation changes daily. So it's very important that we understand where things are and where things are going. I think the second piece was where we got a lot of requests from our last webinar 2 weeks ago, which is to understand, with all the changes, what does that mean from the perspective of the documentation and our job requirements. And the third one was the piece that was added. Don will explain in more details, but we wanted to share with you guidelines from the Alzheimer's Association. So these three pieces will be covered by Don, and then Vicki will present to us how can we better engage people living with dementia, especially in the context of COVID-19. So with that, I'll make a transition to Don, and Don, it's all yours, and I can change the slides for you if you wish.
That would be great. Thank you so much, and thank you for having us.
Sorry, Don, one thing I forgot to mention. To the audience, you probably realized that we deactivated the chat feature because of the large number of people on the line. Please use the Q&A, and the panelists, including me, will be able to see your questions through the questions and answer module, and we'll try to insert that as much as possible through the presentation. Sorry, Don, for the interruption. Go ahead.
No problem. So again, thank you for having us. So, you know, a lot has changed. I am sure your community, regardless if it's a nursing home and assisted living, independent facility, or a CCRC, what you saw 2 weeks ago when we met and what you see today is quite different, and that's also on the forefront of within my community also. When we talk about moving forward, whether it's regulations, whether it's documentation, I'm going to start out with the most stringent guidelines, which are nursing homes, but I really hope to intertwine how it can be modified and adapted so that those that are in assisted livings and CCRC's independent livings will be able to pull out any type of relevant information that is useful within your community. So there hasn't been, I say this, there hasn't been very much change in CDC guidelines besides the March 23rd update. However, yesterday there was an emergency for healthcare providers that did come out. We're going to post that on our NCCAP COVID site. And it really just talks about worst case scenarios and what that would look like or what that could look like for a facility that's asked to shelter residents from hospitals. So that one is more specific to nursing homes. But I've reached out to many of my colleagues and friends in all different care areas throughout the United States. And I can't say there's one simple answer to anything that's going to fix it all. Every day it changes. You may realize that what happens in the morning changes in the afternoon. So hopefully we give you enough general guidelines that you can move throughout your day, throughout your communities. So right here, there is a critical pathway for infection control. It's a focus survey that's coming out specifically to nursing homes. However, it's a really good tool to look at it to evaluate your assisted living, your CCRC, for just really good infection control practices. Not necessarily that you'll be surveyed, but there is some great information in there about infection control. If we could go ahead and advance the slide. The biggest change in guidance that came from CMS for me as an activity director, and I've been doing this for 30 years, I had always taught a sequencing for putting on or taking off PPE equipment, that this is new guidance. This has changed most recently regarding to COVID-19, and I thought it would be in our best interest just to look at the sequencing, because this is different. And again, your nursing staff, regardless of what industry you work in, they may have received this training, but I'm not sure if it trickled down to us in activity, so it's worth going over. So again, when we're putting on our PPE equipment, it's recommended that the gown goes first. If you do have different sizes of gowns, you want to make sure that you select the proper side. The opening of the gown should be in the back. Secure the gown at the neck, then the waist. If the gown is too small, then you can use two gowns, one in the front and one in the back. The next thing you put on is your mask or your respirator, whichever one you have. Then goggles or face shield if it's needed, and then your gloves. So that's a little bit different. Now, taking it off was also something for me as an experienced activity professional. I was always used to taking off your gloves, taking everything else, rolling it up, and trying to pull out, or doing your gloves last, pulling everything out through your gloves. So the sequence of removal is actually your gloves first. So the reason being is that gloves are what controls or contracts most of the germs. So they spread the germs quite easily. So whatever is on your gloves, if you then go to take off your gown, now you're taking whatever bacteria that's on those gowns and you're touching your clothing. So gloves first, then your face shield, then your gown, then your mask, wash your hands, use hand sanitizer. So I didn't want to spend too much time on that, but I did find it, again, 30 years in the business, and that this is the proper way to take off your PPE. So with that, let's move on to what we're really interested in talking about, and that's documentation. So I want to preface with nowhere in these regulations are they expecting any type of documentation, regardless if you're assisted living, CCRC, long-term care, to be at the extensive level that we have always been under previously, before COVID-19, before this pandemic, through the nursing homes. So I've watched social media and I follow many pages and try to help guide and give advice and decrease anxieties. I think the most important thing that we want to get across here is take a breath. Your calendars don't need to look like they did prior to COVID-19. Every nursing home, assisted living, CCRC in the entire United States are under the same type of restrictions. We're all dealing with this together. So for me, I've given you two examples of what I've been using. Now, when I do a progress note, and again, whatever it is in assisted living or CCRCs, whatever documentation you're required at that point, I usually do a review of what has been going on up until March 14th, when the order came into effect of no group programming. For me, I broadcast live, as we mentioned in the first webinar, but if you don't, then you just simply put, what have you been doing? So for the cognitively intact resident, you know, I'm sure just like you are, we're giving out supplies, we're making those social visits. You don't have to be detailed with the number of residents that you have to say, I gave one crossword puzzle and two adult coloring pages. You know, briefly, let's make it as generic, but a little bit detailed as possible. We call ours the activity boxes. I have a separate piece of paper that if the regulators ever asked me, well, what was in your activity box? We have kind of a checklist, an order system. So the residents would check off what they wanted. We pick it up on Fridays, and over the weekends we put them together and we distribute them to those alert and oriented residents on Monday. For cognitively impaired, social distancing, again, it's a little bit more passive. Now, for me, the way I run my department is the staff and the resources. And when I say resources, I don't mean the activity staff who wear a badge. I mean the resources in the building, housekeeping, nursing. I help create a visiting schedule for the most cognitively impaired, because it's about the engagement. It's not about how many people I can see in a day. It's to make sure it's meaningful engagement with each individual. And that's going to take more than just the activity staff. So it's okay to direct the nursing staff to say, here's what we need, or for the facility, here's what we need as a facility. And then we focus our time on our residents that are most cognitively impaired. So that's an example of a progress note that you could add to. The next slide talks about caregiving, care planning. So again, care planning in the sense of whether it's a nursing home or whether it's an assisted living, the question is, how detailed do I need to be? Care plans are supposed to be interdisciplinary. So if we go to the next slide, something that a sample of one of the care plans that we use and create is we really implement this jointly between nursing, social work, and activities. There's no sense everyone care planning the same thing. We're all working on the same issue. And the general issue with this is separation anxiety related to visitor restriction policy. And then it gives you a sample of two different goals: someone that's cognitively impaired versus someone that's cognitively intact. Without reading the slide, I want you to notice that the approaches are interdisciplinary in nature. So you put what applies to you. So there's approaches that nursing would take care of, social work, as well as activities. And this is something that we just add into the care plan as a temporary care plan. Any of my other care plans that I have for my long-term care residents, I've kept them. Not every resident gets a separation anxiety. Many of them don't have it now. Does that change in 2 weeks? It might. So you only implement this when there is a need to implement it. Let's go on to the next slide. And the next question was, what are you doing with your April calendars? And I've seen some beautiful calendars, and I'm always amazed at activity professionals to put so much creativity and make them look beautiful. And now we're struggling because we don't know what next week is going to look like, and we don't know what the end of April is going to look like. I say, take a breath, give yourself a break. You don't know? Now for me, again, we live broadcast. What I'm recommending for those that aren't live broadcasting, put minimal. daily cart visits, social visits, whatever you're calling your door-to-door program, it's okay. My calendar that I just hung is completely blank. And at the bottom in the note section, it says something like, during this time of COVID-19 social distancing requirement, please see a daily calendar for a list of full activity offerings. And then this is a sample of the daily, this is what we broadcast into the rooms. So this is a sample of my daily calendar. If I wasn't broadcasting, it would be maybe supplies that I offer if we're going around and doing, something special for the residents. And that's all it is. Again, we don't have to make it look like, I would recommend you do post a calendar for orientation purposes, but let's keep it simple. Let's talk about attendance sheets on the next slide.
I'm sorry, Don, one thing. As you, one of the comments we got last time about this comment particularly is also to check if the staff has corporate requirements if they're part of a chain, right? They need to check what are the policies. Yeah, okay.
Absolutely. And again, all companies, I think, or many of the companies that I've talked to, activity professionals, is sometimes they're looking at us going, what do you recommend? So feel free to have that conversation with your corporate liaisons. But yes, always your corporation would dictate exactly what their expectations are. But don't feel threatened to have that conversation as to realistically what would be a good way to communicate what you're doing.
Yep.
Thank you, Charles.
Sure.
So attendance sheets. Again, when we're talking about attendance sheets, I do believe in the KISS method. Keep it simple, sweetheart. So capture what they're doing in their room, because remember, activities can be done by anyone at any time. So we want to be able, if they're doing independent programming, let's capture that. If you're doing live broadcasting, like we are, we've created a symbol. It's a star. On my participation record, everyone says a star means live broadcasting. Please see daily activity calendar. If your building has an ambassador program where your department heads are visiting residents or calling family members, if they're visiting the residents, we can capture those types of engagement visits. Capture the social visits, the room visits. If the activities department has helped setting up the calls for families to keep them connected, that is what you can capture. And again, we're all in this together. Every day is completely changing. My engagement and level of engagement in and out of rooms 2 weeks ago has significantly changed from today. So I don't know what 2 weeks from now is going to hold. We just have to take every day's guidance, and each one of our communities are completely different based upon what, if they have COVID in their building, what their corporation has put on as a safety precaution for infection control. So let's move along, and the next slide talks about resident council. This is a policy. Now, for assisted livings and CCRCs, you necessarily don't have a resident council meeting, but what you could do to capture resident input would be a questionnaire, and that's what this is. Pretty much, we're not doing resident council as far as a group setting. One of the things in order to meet FTAG 565 would be, we have a policy in place where we created, talked to the president and the vice president of council. We created a questionnaire that we distributed with an envelope to all able-bodied residents to complete the questionnaire, put them in the envelope to protect their privacy. Envelopes are collected by the activity department. So we're actually doing that this week. Any resident who needs some assistance to complete their questionnaire, the activity staff or a designated nursing staff member is helping residents complete the questionnaire, putting it in an envelope, and then I have a sealed box in my office. At the end of Friday, I will go through it, and then I will coordinate any trends, any positive comments, any things that we need to look at. So some of the questions might be, again, for me, we're live broadcasting. Have you participated in live broadcasting? Here's some general questions. Do you have enough things to keep you actively engaged and stimulated? Do you get the help you need without waiting for a long time? Do you feel the staff is taking proper precautions to keep you healthy, like using hand sanitizer before they enter or exit your room? Do you think the housekeeping department is doing a good job at keeping your building clean and sanitized? During this healthcare crisis, is there a staff member that you would like to recognize for going above and beyond to make you feel more comfortable and improve your quality of life? And I think that's a really great question, because that'll give the residents an opportunity to let them know who's making the biggest impact. And I think that'll be fantastic for the morale of the staff.
Don, where can people find these documents?
On the NCCAP website, there is a dedicated page called COVID-19.
Okay, and Jeff,
they're being
we will be
updated
sharing. Yeah, and we will be sharing the recording and these slides also.
Yes, great. Okay, and then my next slide is the guidelines or the new guidance from the Alzheimer's Association, and fantastic resource. There were many large industry experts that collaborated to put this in place, and this is the emergency preparedness caring for persons living with dementia in a long-term care or community-based setting. So it's not just for nursing homes, it's very applicable for assisted livings as well as CCRCs. So this goes through preventing illness, and we put the link down there below. So how do you prevent illness with our Alzheimer's residents? Because they're not going to be the best at remembering to wash their hands or covering their nose or their mouth, or sneezing, coughing, refraining from placing things in their mouth, so they're really going to take a little bit of guidance. The next thing is person-centered care. So with the number of staff, and there's many nursing homes, assisted livings, and CCRCs that are really staff challenged right now. So everyone's taking a little bit of a different role than what they normally would have. So the Alzheimer's Association is saying, come up with a quick instruction guide that lists a few things that are person-centered, hang them on the closet door, so anyone that goes in can try to keep a sense of normalcy and be able to communicate and engage with a resident that is person-centered based on their interest. The next thing talks about in this guide is behaviors, keeping family and friends connected, assisted with eating and drinking, and they have a great section. Now, we can go ahead. I was just finishing that sentence. It also goes through some activity interventions. Now, first and foremost, let me say this. You are not going to be able to keep your cognitively impaired residents isolated in a room. You can't restrain them. You can't lock them in. You're going to do the best that you can. I talked to an activity director yesterday who has a complete memory care unit, and those residents in that unit are all over the place. And even though there's no communal dining, it's the only place that they can get them into an area and still be supervised at the same time. So you have to do what's best for your community in the crisis that you're in. We've never experienced this. So please know that sometimes you have to evaluate it as a community as to what's going to work best. But we definitely want to make sure that some of the strategies, as we've always used in activities, offering their favorite food, making sure that, especially this time, that we're using photographs of family and friends. We're listening to familiar music, whether you set music up in the hallway and try to engage residents in that way or bring it into their room. Aromatherapy, validation. It's very important to validate their feelings. I know they're not going to be able to express. Some of them may not be able to express exactly how they feel, and that may come out as a behavior. But we want to be able to do that. Looking through books and magazines, exercising, taking a walk. Again, we just said we're trying to keep people limited outside of the facility or outside of their room. However, there are going to be residents, and you know your residents best, that it's in their best interest, both physically, safety-wise, psychologically, spiritually, emotionally, to just walk them around the building. Whatever your facility protocol is, they wear a mask, you wear a mask. Making sure that their hands are washed, providing purposeful tasks that are helpful, making sure that they're connected. Relaxation techniques, deep breathing, supporting their spiritual needs, Sometimes it's just a warm blanket, a cold cloth, just holding their hand, moving a person to a quiet area. I don't know, I don't think many facilities are out buying new equipment such as rocking chairs, but my goodness, if you have a memory care unit and you have them, that is also a great area to be able to use for relaxation also. So again, there is no quick fix answers. We've got tools within our arsenal. We want to do the very best that we can. And it's not about a numbers game. And I hear from many people that question and say, well, you know, I'm expected. They want me to do more. They want me to do more. And they being the administration or the facility. And again, I challenge you as the experts. You are the experts in social engagement, activity professionals. If there was ever a time for us to show our leadership and our skill set is right now. Be able to take this crisis and help direct your facility as to how everyone can engage your residents. And I think that's what it is, meaningful engagement. So with that, are there any questions, Charles, that you have? And if not, I will turn my time over to Vicki. I'm very excited for her portion.
Yeah, we've had a couple questions, and actually a lot before the webinar, about this social, which actually means physical distancing, right? And you just explained that in the case of our residents living with dementia, like restraining them to their room was sometimes not an option. You know, how do you manage that? The social distancing, the physical distancing, in the context of the fact that we need to leave the community open. We have a Canadian client that you know, explained to me that the correct distance, how to see it visually, was a hockey stick, right? But have you seen anything successful, or do you have best practices, if any, on how to manage that? Yeah.
So I do have, you know, I have a community of 200 residents. So we have quite a number of residents with cognitive impairments. So when they are out and about, we're trying to use a table so that we can get them out. They're 6 foot, 8 foot apart, and we're actually bringing engagement materials right to them, so that they are out, we can see them, they can see us, because a lot of times I get the sense that as long as they're in their doorway or at that hallway where they can see traffic, they know they're safe, they know everything that's going on, they've been less likely to wander and wonder what, you know, it's a quiet building, our building's never quiet. So I would say meet the resident where they are. And again, social distancing, if we can get them to be 6 feet, 8 feet apart, position them, give them something to engage in, that's what I've been using right now, which could change 2 days from now.
Okay, thanks, Tom. And I guess the last question, which is probably one of the most important ones, because we did get it throughout, is, and actually I saw this one even on one of the Facebook groups, is, you know, the fact that we might not be considered as quote unquote essential staff. Can you just tell us a little bit about that?
Yes, and I could get on a soapbox with this one. I think that
yeah, we have to get into Vicki's presentation, but essentially, what's the one sentence that people have to hear from you now on that topic?
I think there's never a more crucial time for us to be that essential personnel than right now. The psychosocial well-being of an individual, that social model of care and what we deliver, is equally, if not more important right now than the medical care that they're receiving from nursing. They have lost everything in the sense of social connection. The one thing that they need to have is the stability of us as activities to make sure that we can bring that normalcy and that connection back to them.
Okay, so just to rephrase that, just to make sure, no one on the line that has an activity director or life enrichment position should be afraid of losing their job because the activity position might be considered non-essential. Is that correct?
That is correct, and we have a position statement on our NCCAP resource page that any activity director can use.
Okay. Thank you so much, Dawn.
Thank you.
Just as a side note, as the audience has probably seen, I'm actually sharing my video Dawn decided not to share her video because she is in her community today, and they're trying to manage the bandwidth so that the other staff and the residents can use as much bandwidth as possible. So with that, thank you, Dawn. We might have questions for you at the end. I'd love to transition to Vicki, who's going to share her video. And Vicki, it's up to you. Thank you very much, Dawn.
Hi, everybody. Can you hear me all right?
Yeah. Thank you, Vicki.
Thank you. Okay. Validation is a method of communicating with very old people. And before I talk too much about it, I want to know how many of you already know validation or are practicing validation. And I believe we have a poll that's going to go up, and you guys can answer that question because it makes a difference.
Thanks, Vicki. I have launched the poll. I'm not seeing answers to the poll question yet. Here they come. Okay.
Cool. So validation was developed by Naomi Feil, who happens to be my mom, and I'm following in her footsteps. I think validation has an extraordinary position at this time because using it can help you connect very quickly with older adults who have cognitive decline. And as Dawn just said, if not now, never. It's the most important time to connect quickly and deeply, because very old people with cognitive decline are very sensitive to the atmosphere. So if there's a lot of anxiety around them, if you are scared and the staff is scared, they're going to feel that. And very often for old people, the feeling of fear in the here and now is going to trigger memories of being afraid many, many years ago, perhaps an old war experience. And so you may see people reacting now as if it was World War II or Korea or some other traumatic experience from 50, 60 years ago. And I think that's important for you to just recognize. Second slide, please. This is going to be the most important thing I give you today, because centering is a way of clearing whatever anxiety or pressure or the million thoughts that are going on in your head before you engage with an older person who has cognitive decline. You've got to clear all that out. I hope all of you have centering exercises in your daily practice, or meditation, or mindfulness, or yoga, or Tai Chi, or whatever it is that works for you. But if you don't, I'm going to lead an exercise right now. And if you like it, it's yours. And if you don't like it, there's a ton of them on our website, YouTube videos that last between 3 and 5 minutes, and you can see which one that you like. So if you would please close your eyes for a minute and put your feet on the ground and just pay attention to your breathing. Coming in through your nose and exhale through your mouth. And I'd like you to imagine a color that gives you energy, a color that gives you a feeling of peace, of resourcefulness. And imagine that the air around your head is filled with this color. And as you inhale through your nose, you bring the color into your body. And as you exhale, the color moves through the inside of your body. So take 3 deep breaths, bring the color into your body, and send it down through your torso. And with your next deep breath, send the color down into your legs, past your knees, your ankles, your toes. Take a breath in and come back up to your shoulders and send the color down through your arms, your elbows, your wrists, your hands, your fingertips. And with one last mighty breath, take the color in and fill your head with color. So now your body is filled with energy-giving resourcefulness that you can carry forward in your day. And when you're ready, come back and open your eyes. I kid you not when I say that this exercise is one of the most important things that you can do for yourself and for your residents every day. If you do these centering exercises, in particular this one with color, if you do it every day, it will happen in a second. I do this exercise so often that now I just think of the color and I'm there. So it takes a little bit of practice, but you deserve those 3 minutes. Next slide, please. Because the next thing is, if you don't take care of yourself and you don't have the energy, it's very hard for you to be creative and give your all to the people you work with. So my next question to you all, and please write your answer on the Q&A. What activity do you do every day? And I don't care if it's 2 minutes or 30 minutes. Do you jog? Do you walk? Do you dance, rock and roll in the living room? Read a book for a half hour? Take a bath? I want to hear some of your creative ideas. Share them with each other, because it's critical for you to take care of yourself. Snack cart. I'm not sure that's a great, well, it is sugar energy, and that is certainly energy as well. I love these. Cooking, awesome. Audiobooks.
Just as a quick note, everyone, sorry, Vicki, I see a lot of people using the chat. We can't monitor the chat. There are hundreds of questions in there. It's much easier for us to use the Q&A. So please use the Q&A feature, not the chat. Thank you very much.
So what am I seeing on the Q&A? Can everybody see the Q&A?
Yeah.
Great. Dance and sing, prayer, outstanding, spending time with pets, Dance parties, right on. Fantastic. Wine, I like that one. So make sure that you have something. Make sure that you feed your spirit so that when you go in and you have your centering, you can be open. Next slide, please. Now we're going to get to what exactly do you do? How do you use validation now? Well, the first thing you can do is observe your resident. You know them, but every moment is different, in particular with people who have cognitive decline. Take that breath and look at that person to take their emotional temperature. That's what my mom always says. Take their emotional temperature. And you do that by observing. Is somebody looking like this? What do you see? You can see a lot from a facial expression. Or how about this? Or how about this? So by taking that 2 seconds to observe, you already have begun to move into their world. And that's important because to make contact with an older adult on a deep level and going deep quickly is what I would like for you to be doing. If somebody is verbal, you can use simple open questions. How are you doing today? What are you missing? If a lot of emotions are coming up, all you need to do is listen. How bad does it feel? Have you ever felt this before? You can bring in elements of reminiscing into it. Because a lot of people, like I said before, the past will often melt with the present. And so the fears and anxiety they may express now may also have tentacles in the past. If people are nonverbal, meaning that they no longer express their feelings and their needs with words, they're expressing through their body movements, perhaps rocking back and forth. They may express by pounding or pacing. You know people who do that. And those behaviors are important ways for them to express needs and feelings. And sometimes you can help them by just pacing what they are doing and recognizing that there's worth in what they are doing. The one nonverbal technique I wanted to give you, which actually Dawn inspired me, and that is sing with them. If you know their favorite song or a song that's from their background, from their past, learn it and sing it with them. You will be surprised how good that can work. There were a lot of questions, like how do I deal with people who don't want to wash their hands? I think it's a matter of how you approach that person. If you approach them with the task, I want to wash their hands, you might get a more negative reaction than taking a more, first spending 2 minutes with them talking and then saying, hey, shall we wash your hands? I'm going to wash my hands, let's do it together. for instance. And if they say, no, no, I don't want to, then you can bring in a washcloth for them to use that's warm, that they like. Or talk about how did they wash their children's hands when the children came in from work, from playing outside and were all dirty. What did you do? How did you manage that? Those might help.
Sorry, Vicki, Vicki, sorry. Because I went through validation, the training itself, somebody had a question, which was, what did you mean by pacing the expression in nonverbal resonance? What did you mean exactly there? Because that's a crucial part of validation.
It certainly is, and it's something that has to be done with empathy, meaning sharing their feelings, not play acting. So if somebody is pounding, you might want to pound too. That's actually mirroring their actions. If somebody is walking in the hallway, you can walk next to them, even with distance, but walk in the same rhythm, with the same weight, with the same intent, and that will help make contact. Is that clearer?
Yeah, for me it is, yeah. I think so, yeah.
Okay, cool. I agree 100% with Dawn when she says people who have cognitive decline, you cannot keep them locked up in their room. If somebody is used to walking around, perhaps you can schedule as an activity sort of individual walking sessions, either around the building or up and down the halls. I think it's important to maintain that. Even if you have to wear gloves and a mask, you can still express empathy through your eyes and with the way you touch somebody's shoulder or their face. Don't be afraid to get close. They need that. Yeah, I think those are the most important things I wanted to get across today. And
thank you, Vicki.
Questions.
Thank you, Vicki.
The next slide, please.
Yeah. Can I make a quick comment, Vicki? I just want to share with everyone on the line, actually, that a few years ago, 4 years ago, I actually had one of the most amazing opportunity in my career, which was to become a validation worker. It was a lot of training, but it was one of the best things I did to understand how we can help people living with cognitive change and how to, I think the best word is to maximize the time with them, to really use every single, it's never hours, but really minutes and seconds with them. So I really recommend that you just check out their website. I know we have a special announcement of VTI and NCCAP, but I know that Vicki might have forgotten, but I also wanted to invite you. I'm now sharing another screen from my computer where a lot of the techniques that Vicki presented to you, a lot of this education is free for you to use with you and your team and actually everyone that you know. And that is, if you search on YouTube for the Validation Training Institute, there are, I don't know if there are thousands, actually probably a good amount of hours and tools there that I recommend you check out. Vicki, I'll let you talk about the quick announcement with NCCAP because I think that's very meaningful.
Thank you. VTI and NCCAP has been working together to develop a course especially for activity professionals. It's all online. It's a 15-hour course. 6 webinars, interactive webinars, and 12 short videos that you can watch in your own time when it's convenient. And that will be going live on April 15th for registration. We are currently piloting the course right now. So we'll fix all the bugs and hopefully bring a lot more validation skills to people who can use them.
Cool. So with that, I wanted to come to a question to you, Dawn, or you, Vicki, that we've been getting quite a lot, which is that obviously these times are scary for everyone, right? What can we do? What should we do if we have staff that is scared about interacting with the older or with the residents that we have? How do we deal with that? Yeah.
Well, I'm going to, as an activity director, that
Yeah.
we're living with that right now. I think it's just a humanistic
Absolutely.
need. Vicki, I cannot tell you that your centering activity came at the perfect time. 3 weeks in, almost 4 weeks in, myself as a seasoned activity professional, a human being, our anxiety gets up there. I just called all my staff in when you were doing the centering. And I think that's an amazing piece that we often forget of self-care and how important it is to be able to do that. In our community, transparent, open, honest communication, proactive communication with the staff from the leadership. And also, when you really think about it, all of our communities are most likely doing the same screening of employees: temperature checks, physical checks, written questionnaires, sanitizing their belongings, wearing a mask, hand sanitizing at every 10-foot intervals. You are safer in your community than you are the grocery store or the gas station. And we have a very controlled environment in which we work. This is truly the safest place that you could be as a healthcare worker. When you go outside and you go to the grocery store, they may not be taking temperatures of all the employees. They're not taking temperatures of the shoppers that are coming in and hand sanitizing. So putting things in perspective. Also, I think it's helpful, what we've been doing in our community is sharing the good news, not always the bad, understanding that the number of cases that rise simply indicate the number of cases we know about because of the increased testing. So with that, I'll turn it over to Vicki for some suggestions too. I just wanted to add mine. Thank you.
I have very little to add to what you just said.
Okay.
How do we handle our fear?
Yeah.
You know?
I think, Vicki, one of the things you said is that as much as we can, I mean, the more we do, the more beneficial it will be for our residents, because, you know, they just sense it. So I think it's important. And I agree, like you're centering the exercise. I've done it a lot, and it helps every single time. With that, we're running out of time, but we've got literally hundreds of questions in the chat. I want to tell you that yes, we've read all of them. I highly encourage you. In the next couple of slides, we will have the contacts of the presenter. But before I do that, I think there's something very important that I'd like to share with you, is that as lonely as sometimes you feel, you are not alone. Like, we are all going through some level of fear, some level of changes, and we're all hoping for some kind of new normal soon, right? This is, as Vicki and Dawn both said, unprecedented. None of us have lived that before. And so you're not alone. There's a lot of organizations that are here to help. VTI is one, NCCAP is another one. I wanted to share with you an effort that Link Senior launched 2 weeks ago on the webinar we did 2 weeks ago. And that effort is called Activities Strong. And the whole idea is that us as a profession, not only our profession, all of us working in contact with the residents, the more we work together, the better off we are. And activity is truly an extremely, quote unquote, strong discipline. And to support this effort, as you can see, I'm changing to our website, and I want to invite you to this new section that we launched that has an amazing library of resources for us activity directors. We have all the listing of previous webinars where we've had Vicki and Dawn, and we will have Vicki and Dawn in the future. I encourage you to look at past recordings, but also future webinars that we have. We also launched a vast resource library that is entirely free for the activity professional. There are tip sheets on how to protect and disinfect different tools and hardware. But here's the biggest thing that I'd like to share with you. As these are unprecedented times, Link Senior has decided to offer a lot of our products, a lot of our platform for free with no financial, no strings attached, at least until July 4th of this year. To do this, to get access, I invite you to just fill in this form and we will be in touch very quickly. Again, the idea is to give you as many tools as possible, as quickly as possible, so you can do what it is that you love and that you sign up for in the first place, which is to engage the older adults. To make it fun, we also decided to send old people or cool stickers that I'm showing now on the video to the first 25 communities that will sign up. We will send you a packet of these. You'll get them in the mail in the coming days. And that's just a way of us thanking you again for taking care of our older adults. My only request to all of you on the line, and that is an advice that we heard from Dawn and Vicki, but it's probably the most important one, is please take care of yourself. That is the most important thing always, but obviously even more in these times. With that, I'll invite you, all the listing of our webinars is on our website. I invite you to contact us if you have any questions. And again, thank you, Dawn. Thank you, Vicki, for such an amazing presentation in these difficult times. I hope that everybody got at least something. And if you have any questions, again, feel free to reach out. Megan, I'll let you discuss a couple more items. Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. I have put the mandatory CEU survey link into the chat box. So if you can go ahead, if you want your NCCAP CEU credit, you need to fill out that survey before midnight this Friday, and then you're going to receive your CEU certificate in the mail on Monday. And again, be sure to check your spam folder just in case it lands there. And stay tuned this afternoon. Everyone who joined the webinar will be getting a recording of the webinar, a PDF of the slide deck, some information on upcoming webinars, and some special tip sheets from Vicki about using validation in your work moving forward. Thank you very much to our speakers, and to Charles, and to the participants today, and we will talk to you soon.
Thanks, everyone. Take care.